Hey, what's up? It's Kyle from Strange Pumpkin Mixes. I'm going to give you a quick tutorial on how to export files from Pro Tools for mixing in a different DAW or other piece of software. So we have our session here. This is our song. We've got all our vocal files. Everything's named properly. We have an instrumental track. We have some verse vocals here, an intro vocal, some hook vocals, and whatnot. But you can see they're all kind of separated. So if we went to our audio folder here, and we went to all the files and we sent them all like this, but someone opened them up in, let's say, Logic, they'd all open up in Logic like this. They're not gonna keep their timing, and that'll all sound really, really bad. So let's undo all of that. So what we're going to do before we send them off is we're going to consolidate all the files. So what we want to do is make sure that every single audio track here plays back from the same start point. So we can do that by clicking and dragging from the very end of the song all the way to the very beginning, and then dragging down for all the files we want, or all the tracks you want to include. Now what you can also do, instead of clicking and dragging, is you can click on drag on one track, or let's say you click here at the end, and then in Pro Tools you can hold on the Shift key and then press return, and that'll grab your selection all the way to the very beginning of the session, and then you can basically either shift click to the very end, the very last track, and it'll select all the files, or you can go and individually pick which files you need to send. In this case, we're sending all the files, so we're going to make sure they're all selected. So now that they're selected, we can either press Option Shift 3 on the keyboard, or we can go to Edit and click Consolidate Clip. So now what it's going to do is going to make sure that all the files have the exact same start point, as you can see here. All right, so now we can close down our session, and we can go to our audio files folder, which we're already at. So if we were in our session folder right here, we can go to audio files inside that session folder, and we can see all the files that are part of the session. But we want to make sure that we're sorting by date modified. So right here you can see name, you can see date modified, kind, and size. And if you don't see date modified, you can click on any one of these options here, right click, and you can select date modified or date created or anything like that. But in this case, we want to use date modified. So we're going to sort by date modified, and we can see here that there was a bunch of files created at 1:39 p.m. So we're going to want to make sure these are all the new files we just consolidated. And you can see that we have two instrumental files, so one's instrumental left, one's instrumental right, and then we have our 4 verse vocal files, our 1 intro vocal file, and we have our 5 our hook vocals. So we can select all these files here. We can right click and select copy these 12 items, or we can say Command C on the Mac, and that'll copy the files. And then we can make a new folder on our desktop or wherever you want to make it. In this case, we'll do it on the desktop. So I'm going to close this. Go to desktop. I'm going to say, I can right click and say new folder. I'm going to call this song name -export. So now we have that. We can open the folder. We can right click and say paste 12 items, or we could have said, used the Command V shortcut to paste as well. So we've pasted the items. We have everything ready to go. Now when we send this off to our engineer, they can mix it without having to worry about the timing of the files. Everything will be right. So you want to make sure this folder contains everything that you want to send to the engineers. So let's say you also had a rough mix. So you could go to your rough mix folder. So let's go to a rough mix folder. Let's say here. Okay, there's our rough mix. So we're going to copy that, open up our old folder, paste that in there. And now we have a rough mix file in there as well for the engineer to listen to as like a guide. And now we're ready to send it. But before we send it, we want to make sure that nothing gets lost. So we're going to right click on the folder, and we're going to say compress. And this will say compress whatever the file name or the folder name is. And that'll create a zip folder or a zip file. Wait for that to finish. This will vary in time depending on how large the file is. Okay, it's done now. So now we can send this folder to our engineer, and they'll have all the files that we need to give them, and we're good to go. That's it. Thanks.